Hi guys, welcome to the second part of Module 9. This is all about controlling the project. In our previous video we talked about project changes, and this is all about how you're going to manage those changes. Changes are absolutely going to happen, but how you control those changes and control the lifespan of the project is so important for you as a project manager. We have really focused on how important planning is. It is so important to invest in planning, to making sure that all of your project definition document is well documented and written, and so that you are able to, it really sets that stage for how the actual execution of your project will go, as well as the work breakdown structure and all of the work that has to be done in order to execute your project. So you can see that the implementation phase accounts for the project execution as well as the project control. So you can see that the project control is all about making sure that those objectives are being met, as well as monitoring the progress. That is absolutely very important, to continuously monitor your project. That is really the heart of controlling the project. So we're going to go through a few things of what it looks like to keep a project under control. It's really being vigilant. It's being vigilant to look at, are we on track? Are we on budget? Are we on schedule? It's constantly monitoring the success of the project and all of the details and facets of the project. I usually find that people who are detail-oriented can really manage a project much better than someone who is big picture thinking. It doesn't mean that you can't shift your focus. Like if you are better at thinking big picture as opposed to focusing on the details, it doesn't mean that you can't shift and become more aware of the details of the project and managing all of the smaller things, or making sure that you are aligning yourself with someone who can pay attention to the smaller details. You can see lots of these questions that are being asked that help control the project. We also want to look at the principles of project control, the PDA, prevention, detection, and action. This acronym may sound simple, but it is a good way, good practice to have in place of just constantly being vigilant, investing in that planning, overly communicating with your stakeholders, as well as doing a risk assessment, which we will get into in the coming modules. You can also see, I'm going to point this one out in terms of delegating work clearly. This is sometimes a challenge for someone who is a bit controlling in nature and also who is very self-reliant. They want to make sure that they are, if their name is on something, they want to make sure that it's perfect. That type A personality can have a hard time delegating responsibilities and trusting their people. Okay, that is something that why it's very important to trust your staff and your immediate team. It's very important to be able to trust them and to make sure that they have your best interest in the project's best interest at heart when you hand them a responsibility or an actual group of responsibilities. So this is very important when you are executing a project and controlling a project. Detection, that early radar system, making sure that you are being vigilant, that you are constantly monitoring your people, that you are checking in, that you are having status meetings, that you are monitoring those critical success factors, and that you're communicating with stakeholders, looking at the quality, the schedule, and then of course action goes hand in hand with that early detection. Corrective action should be put in place immediately. Do not let a problem fester or continue, but making sure that there is an action done so that you're responding immediately and handling the situation, which again instills confidence in your stakeholders. These are components of project control: performance measurement, looking at the performance of your people, of your staff members, as well as those that are going through the actual program or project, maybe that they are your participants within the project. This is something to think about in terms of are they satisfied in terms of quality, right? So you think about change control management, configuration management, issue management. Is there a system in place for all of these things? What are the policies and procedures? And again, large companies have these things in place. They have risk management teams, quality management teams. I was actually just on an internship phone call, and Dr. Fedoria Reglis was talking about her work at the Church Health Center and how they have several entry-level positions in quality management. Again, the quality of a product or process is very important. That is, it's in its own world, and absolutely it is a project. We've talked about how many things can be considered a project. Each class that you take is considered a project. It has that start and end date, that definite start, that definite end date, and it's producing a unique outcome. So very important. You can see here the components of project control, and these are the many facets in here, and you can see where quality management falls. I want you to be on the lookout for anytime you hear about quality management positions. This is something that you're ensuring the quality of a product that you're delivering or a process you're delivering. Anytime you're talking about customer service, anytime you are checking in with your population to making sure that they are receiving the quality that they expected. In further managing the fundamentals of project control, you want to focus on the priorities. You don't want to be scattered and all over the place. You want to make sure that you are targeting your critical success factors. You also want to expect those changes that we've discussed multiple times. It's important to expect changes, be flexible, be adaptive. That I cannot focus on enough with this class and your age. Being able to be adaptable to changes is incredibly important. It's also being resourceful, thinking outside of the box, thinking through the details so that you can move the goals and the objectives forward for the project. Again, investing in planning, setting expectations. This is something that a project manager can absolutely do from the beginning. Much the same way that I've mentioned before that I set expectations for my classes every single semester, project managers set expectations for their team members. It's so important to communicate your ideas thoroughly and completely, and that you're being consistent, that you're not favoring one team member over another. That's very similar to your instructors, thinking about how we really try to be so fair and consistent with all of our students. We try to make sure that we are giving everyone equal treatment and that we are being consistent in terms of our rules and our grading and our guidelines. You want to think about that paying attention early, paying attention to the outcomes early. And so again, that just really emphasizes how important it is to be vigilant and be planning and be expecting those changes. Another way to handle project control is really to have status meetings. This is something I like to do in person with my classes when we are in groups, that I go around and I'm making sure that we're on track. How are you working together? What problems have you encountered? How have you resolved those problems? A good project manager will do that with his or her team. Completion criteria. Constantly being reminded of the end result and how we are all working together to get there. That's something that's very critical. Again, those milestones and checkpoints, having a celebration for a particular milestone, completing day one, making sure that you're keeping, that you as the project manager are keeping the morale up with your population, that you are, that you're also going back, I do want to mention reviews, that you are reviewing your actual feedback with a particular member of your staff or with everyone. What can we do better as a team? And not constantly pointing fingers, but like working together to create synergy and energy in your actual team so that they can again drive the agenda forward. I'm going to jump down to performance reporting. And the reason I'm doing this is because these are tools in order to help you control the project and making sure that you are constantly going back to answering three big questions. Where do we stand with critical success factors? Schedule, scope, budget, and quality. All are so very important. What variances exist? What caused them? And what are we doing about them? Again, this is showing your team that you are a leader and you are staying on top of these issues or variances in the actual project. Has the forecast changed? The forecast changed? Has it changed from what we originally thought it was going to be? How have we adjusted to that? Are we being flexible? Are we being adaptive? Thinking visual, being able to communicate with your stakeholders in a variety of ways using bar graphs, charts, spotlight indicators, highlighting accomplishments. This helps build morale within your team members. It's a crucial element that can go a long way to continuously build up your team. I'm going to move to variance responses, and I want to highlight this briefly before we wrap up this second video. When we're looking at variance responses, how we're responding to a particular change in the scope of a project or the actual changes to the project itself, looking at corrective actions, understanding why the variance occurred, then adding resources, then adding the change process, possibly coaching performance. If this was an actual human resources error, making sure that they have the tools they need to get back on track to deliver the quality that was promised to the stakeholders. Again, people sometimes ignore the problem. This can become a really big issue if it is a large problem. Obviously, if the variance is small, it might be important to note it, but you know what? It may be in the best interest to come back to that if it continues to persist. Resetting baselines, making sure that, you know what, we're going to start over, we're going to regroup, we're going to come back to this tomorrow, or we're going to come back to this next week, we're going to really kick things off next week. Again, making sure that you are communicating that with your stakeholders is of utmost importance, and that is something when you reset a baseline, you want to make sure that it is done appropriately and that you are communicating it at all points. And so this is really highlighting the variances in your with your different projects and looking at ways that people handle different problems within a project and different changes. You can read through the common project control challenges. These are really, I feel like we've highlighted a lot of these already, but I do want you to make sure you read through those and you're familiar with that. Thinking about your own projects that you have been working on this semester, what changes could actually go on in your own projects? How would you control that? It's important to think through those changes and to mentally process how it would best be addressed if you were to actually execute your project at the location that you deemed that was necessary, and how would the execution go? Would you have everything in place that needed to happen in order to get it off the ground and that it would be a successful project? Have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.